happy he agreed to speak today. So, welcome, Professor David Rowland.
Thank you, Stan. I appreciate the introduction. Welcome to everybody, colleagues, fellow researchers, fellow travelers, adventurers. I'm really happy to have you as part of this session. I was concerned that nobody would log in, and I see that we actually have quite a few people, so I'm very pleased. We're going to make it a very interactive session. In other words, I didn't prepare a lot other than ways to get you to talk and to respond. So first of all, let me congratulate you for the work that you have done. I looked through every abstract and I was really quite amazed by the diversity of ideas, the creativity, the creative expressions. I must say there's an incredible amount of talent. I also hope that you had good interactions. I want to let you know that if nobody asked a question of you or nobody did anything with respect to your presentation, don't feel bad. It happens to everybody. I've had articles that I thought were really great articles and nobody has ever cited them. So there's always that situation where sometimes you feel as though people are not paying attention to your work. Well, let me assure you, at some point, somebody will find it. Let me also say that the function of the university is really one of the transferal of knowledge and ideas. You have been a part of that process through all of your classwork, through the learning that you have engaged in over the years. But there's a second function of the university that is as important, and that second function is the function of creating new knowledge, of finding new insights. And it's really a limited number of students that are involved in that process. In other words, everybody is involved in the process of learning, but only a select few are involved in the process of actually generating and creating new ideas. And that is what you have done in this SOURCE conference. And you really have a great deal to be proud of for that reason. I do want to quickly acknowledge your contribution. I want to acknowledge the fact that behind every student presentation, there is some faculty member who was worried about it, who was providing helpful guidance, who was assisting with language and organization and so on. So we certainly want to acknowledge those individuals, and we want to acknowledge the incredible amount of work that the organizers have done, because it's one thing to organize this in the same fashion that it was organized last year. This year, it was organized in a totally different way, and it has taken an enormous amount of effort on the people that are on the committee. I want to let you know, I hope you enjoyed that first cartoon. I want to let you know that I have with me two of my research associates. Both were undergraduates here, and I think maybe their pictures are up there. You can see one under the title Elise and Sean. Well, that's not really Elise and Sean, that's Sean, okay? And Sean got a master's degree at Purdue. He took a year or two off, and now he's heading back to IU for a doctoral degree in public health. The other person is Elise, whom you see there, who was also a research associate of mine and is now earning her master's degree in clinical mental health counseling. Both of these individuals have, by the way, published a number of papers, have been co-authors on a number of papers. So I wanted to let you know about them. So what are we going to do here? Well, this is really the final experiment, the final project, if you will, for the day. So I'm going to be placing the burden on you to respond to a number of questions. And just to give you an idea of what we're going to be asking, it includes 5 different questions. Why did you do this project? What did you learn? What were the joys and pains of doing it? how did doing this project affect you personally, and what take-home message would you like people to remember? And the way that we're going to do this is with a series of questions where you then write in short responses, and we will then feed back these responses to you after each question. So the research associates that I have here will be pulling out various responses and feeding them back. At the same time, one of the other research associates will be looking at all of the responses and trying to come up with some sort of summarization of what people are saying. Before we do that, we want to get a sense of who you are. I don't know how, we have 52 participants at this point, and if we take the 5 individuals who are actually hosting or presenting, I think that leaves about 45 or 46. So here's the first thing, and this is a good way to test our system. Here's the first thing that I would like you to do. I would like you to look at this slide, okay, and respond to, you're responding to IT, right? IT assist, okay, not Elise and Sean, but IT assist, and just respond with the number of who or what title best represents you. Were you a student presenter? Were you a Valpo student attending the conference but not presenting? A faculty member, administrator, staff, an alum, a non-Valpo guest? If you want, you can identify yourself. Or if you don't fit any of those categories, make up a category and identify yourself. Okay, so we'll give you maybe 1 minute to do this, and we'll try to look at the responses. Okay, do we have enough here? Yes, why don't you go ahead? Okay, I'm going to mute.
Well, it looks like the majority of attendees are students who have presented, but we also see a very good representation of the faculty, also some administrators, and even a few alumni of the college. So that's really wonderful to see that there is a great variety in the people attending today. So we're really excited about that.
And apparently nobody put other, is that correct? So everybody fits into one of those categories. That's amazing, because universities are supposed to be hotbeds of diversity and radicalism, but apparently that's not the agenda item today. So, say what? Okay, people can hear me, is that correct? Okay, all right. So what I would like, since that seemed to work pretty well, what I would like to do is to now have you respond to the next question. So this next question is, why did you decide to do this project? We've listed a number of possibilities here, and maybe one or more than one of these fits you. What you should do is choose the one that you think best fits you. It may not be the only one that fits you. So the choices are, I did it as part of a class, department, or other assignment. I was strongly encouraged by a faculty mentor or peer. I just had a question or idea I wanted to explore. I wanted to prepare for my career and or add to my resume. I was interested in learning more about the research process. I had some other reason. So take a minute and let's begin to get responses. I think all you need to do is to put A, B, C, D, E, or F. And if you put F, you might want to fill something out there.
I'll just jump in here to remind those who are responding that they need to direct these to the IT Assist host and not to everyone.
This is, by the way, truly an experiment. We've gone through a practice run or two, but with any experiment or project, you know there are going to be lots of problems. And as I sit here, we are discovering them. But that's okay. I do like the love Dr. Rowland. What is that? Okay. At this point, does one of you want to try to respond to this? I'm going to go on mute.
It looks like a lot of us are on A. I did it as part of a class or assessment. There's a lot of A's, which I can't blame you. I had a source because I was also doing it for an assignment one year. Sean, have you noticed anything?
I did see quite a few B's as well, that students were in contact with a faculty member who was very passionate about their research, and by interacting with those faculty members, students also became interested in a particular project, and that motivated them to pursue a research goal and to get involved. So it's really encouraging to see that students at Valpo have these positive interactions with their faculty members, and that enables them to pursue a particular research topic.
Thanks. I would like to say and make a quick comment, and that is the following. I think what you see here is the care and interest that the faculty have for your development as scholars, because truly doing a research project or a creative expression project is one way to develop you as a scholar. And the fact that the faculty are encouraging you in this direction, I think, speaks very highly of the faculty. The fact that you are willing to do it speaks very highly of you. I will also say, however, that nearly everybody in their first attempts at research will be doing research because of external motivators. That is, there's somebody that's saying, hey, why don't you do this, or it would be good, or maybe this will have this effect on your grade, and so on. Some of you, because this has been a positive experience, will likely, however, find ways to do a second project and a third project, and so on. You know, even young faculty are often doing research and scholarship because they are required to do so. So it takes some time to get to the point where you're actually doing research and creative expression for the love of research and creative expression. That may come at some point. It may come down the road. I think for me, it took quite a few studies for me to get to that point. It may, and this point was brought up in the opening remarks, it may never come. That is, some individuals may decide that they just don't want to be researchers. But I have confidence that some of you, having had the experience now, this first time, will see that there's opportunity, there's value, there's incredible learning experiences that are going on, and that you'll look for the next opportunities to do it. Let's go on to the next question. By the way, I like to put quotes here, and somehow my quote is being blocked. Okay, whoops. So the important thing in research is not so much to obtain new facts as to discover new ways of thinking about them. So you might just keep that in mind. In other words, research isn't simply the accumulation of knowledge. It's coming to the point where you see problems differently, where you see the framework of the world differently. And I think that this is what becomes one of the most exciting parts of doing research. Let's go to the second question. Now we're going to get a little more personal. So what was your most valuable learning experience in doing this project? It would be very helpful if you could include your name and the program that you're in. That would be very useful for us. So what was your most valuable learning experience? A simple phrase: this happened. I learned how to work with others. I learned the wonder of discovery, or whatever. Anything that you want is adequate here. So why don't you go ahead and take a minute to think about that? enter your answer, and while you're doing that, there's another quote here that we might just think about. I will say this is quite a task in management at this end because we did not expect to have this many people. But you learn through experience, and that's exactly what we're doing.
All right, so Eric has learned the importance of rereading and going back to the previous work that has been done on the topic, the way that you can avoid rediscovering and focus on new discoveries. Kind of like standing on giant shoulders, or what that quote is. And from art, learned how to combine different disciplines to express a concept. Thomas Paul from biology learned the frustrating but also rewarding experience that comes with having a research question and finding a way to answer it. Zachary from security, that's an interesting field, learned, oh, they're flying so fast, learned how to conduct craft research in the real world. Nazia in IT, by completing the study, I learned a quite new topic in my field of study, which is enterprise architecture. That is a very interesting topic. Daniel Saros, as a faculty member, I learned a great deal about topics that are outside the field. Oh, Professor Dan Saros, economics. The mechanics of research, that's a good point, Nick, from psychology. Managing an entire literature review alone group is an immense feat of organization, which not only teaches one to manage large quantities of information, but also instills great humility when facing the world of literature out in the field. Very good points.
Okay, so just to summarize the results that we got for this question, many of you reported that research was helpful in gaining some practical experience, so applying different concepts to the real world or to particular clients, and so you felt that the research opportunity was a really good way to get that hands-on experience. We also saw a lot of responses dealing with the interdisciplinary of research, which is quite rewarding. So it gives you the opportunity to interact with professionals from a lot of different fields and potentially to get a new perspective on a topic that you may not have had before. And then thirdly, I saw several responses talking about while that there were some challenges that you had to learn to manage, navigating that process was also very intrinsically rewarding, and it gave you confidence moving forward. So having those hurdles and being able to overcome them was particularly useful and important.
So I think what you hear is that the experience of doing research teaches you much beyond the process of getting new information, of seeking information, of pulling that information together. It teaches you a lot about yourself. I like the one comment that says, it instills great humility when facing the world of literature. And I think this is probably very much in line with the quote that I have there. I think that what a life of research really teaches us is the vastness of our ignorance, how little we know about so much. And I think in that respect, it keeps us small. It keeps us wondering about what could possibly be and how we can find out more about what is there. So let's take this then on to the next question. Oh, here's a little something. This is for the physicists or the whatever. So I think you should be more explicit here in step 2. I don't know if you see that. Do you see step 2 there? I'm trying to move. Yeah, okay. So I often look for that miracle in the research that I do, and it often never shows up. So, okay, this takes us to the third question. Remember, there are only 5 here, but now we get more into the emotional component of doing research. When you do research, and this came across with some of the responses, there are joys to doing it, and there are real frustrations, and there are real pains to doing it. Sometimes things don't work out. Sometimes you can't get this piece of equipment to work. Sometimes the person that you were supposed to interview or the photographic model or whatever was not there, or the day turned out to be a bad day. There are so many obstacles, and so much of a research endeavor or a creative expression endeavor is overcoming these obstacles and figuring out through a lot of problem solving how to deal with the many, many kinds of things that you're going to experience in any sort of a research project. So what I want you to do is to think a moment, what was the best part of your research experience? What would make you want to do it again? Please include your name and program. So please respond. Is there anything coming? I must say I'm very happy that you're talkative people, because we also worried that nobody would respond with anything. These are great comments. We need to somehow make these available to everybody. I don't know if we can do that at some point. Can we do that? Yes, if you're ready.
Okay, so we're seeing a lot of wonderful comments. And so, for example, Eric from Math says, the best part of our project was when we had our breakthrough moment. I was finally able to take all the properties I had previously discovered or read and was able to make something new. Another example, Noelle from English and Humanities writes, understanding the topic, and she's also very passionate about research and is potentially seeking it as a long-term career option. So that's really wonderful. Dow from Civil and Environmental Engineering, learning more about the project or topic, working in nanotechnology, and being able to interact with other researchers, including graduate students. Samarth from Psychology mentions recognizing the potential that research helps for people with mental health issues in different cultural contexts. So giving you that sensitivity to unique cultural perspectives or cultural issues. Ray Zimmerman from Computer Science, interacting with our client throughout the process of program development. So being able to hear from a particular client and respond to the unique requests or needs that they have. Thomas from Biology, seeing everything come together and getting perspective, being able to share that with researchers from other fields. So seeing again the reward and the value from being able to communicate findings with people perhaps from different fields who might not normally or typically be exposed to those avenues in research. From Nick in Psychology, we see the feeling that you're adding to and advancing the whole of human knowledge. So contributing to the body of knowledge that scientists and researchers have worked on through the centuries, and feeling that you're contributing to something bigger than yourself. That can be a really powerful and valuable motivator. So a lot of wonderful comments from you. Thank you for sharing.
So looking at them as a whole, we're seeing a lot of the same topics we've got starting narrow and getting big. So like getting big as in looking at your research and seeing how it applies to other fields, seeing other parts of your field. So kind of just realizing how vast the topic has opened up to be. Another very common one was collaboration. So getting to have that communication with others, working with others, being a part of this with others. The breakthrough moment was also a big one, and sharing that breakthrough. So really realizing what you've gotten through all this and getting to the finish line. That was another one that's come up a lot. So thank you very much, everyone.
Once again, I think that you get the impression that that there were really moments of enlightenment that were occurring among students, whether it was enlightenment about an idea or about a process or about people working together, or simply the opportunity, as Kaylee had put it, being able to share information about what you've done with others. When I read the abstracts for the conference, I saw that some were really deeply personal, that some of the topics were very meaningful to people because of their life experiences. And you know, when you talk about motivations for doing research and the rewards that it brings, I'm certain that those of you that approach this with some kind of interest in mind, and as you saw it develop, as you saw the results develop or the creative expression product develop, I'm sure that it impacted you emotionally in ways that you probably could not have anticipated. And I think that, to me, is also one of the really wonderful highlights of doing research, is that sense of you did not expect this, you could not have expected this, you see things that you didn't expect or that you did expect, whatever, and it really brings new framework to your thinking. Let's go on to question number 4, okay, and this one looks at the other side of the coin. So what was the absolute worst or most unpleasant part of doing your project? Here I give you the option of being anonymous. I don't know if you really can be anonymous, but if you want to say, well, I had really terrible teammates on this, whatever, okay, we don't want to expose you. So the point is that you're welcome to respond in any way that you want. I can tell you that I've had a lot of down moments doing research, and understanding the research process is understanding that there are highs and there are, of course, lows. So go ahead and respond to this, and we'll then come back to you in a minute or two as we start getting responses.
So while we're getting responses,
Late nights, okay.
I think that my least favorite part when I was doing this was definitely when you think that you're doing something right with SPSS or another analysis program, and then it turns out you're doing the wrong one. I think that's my least favorite. Let's see what we're getting. Not being satisfied with the outcome and wanting to go back and fix everything. When your outcome is not your hypothesis or you wanted it to be a little bit stronger. Preparing the presentation. Yes. Making that format perfect, chopping a paper. Originally, that was perfect, and you just have to pick that small piece. That's tough. Ultimately, not having enough time to really dig into the project. I understand that, and that was from a professor in chemistry. So, there's a lot of stuff. When students can't narrow down the topic and faculty have to help them do it and get into the research, which is in a different area, that one's own interest. The worst part with tedious things are that you lose track where you are and then you lose concentration. I understand that too. It does really tedious. Feeling like I've wasted time or effort on things that have to be done all over again. I feel that. The worst part was proofreading and finding something you missed. Deciding which approach is the best approach. That's a really good point too. Analysis of all the different options on the table. The lack of useful examples or documentation of Google Apps to the programming language used made development a bit frustrating. I've never used that programming language, but I will take your word from it.
So basically, to summarize the responses we're getting here, I noticed a couple of common themes, one of which has to do with time constraints. And so sometimes there isn't enough time in the day to really delve into a topic as deeply as you would like, or you have other responsibilities to focus on, which can make research a difficult endeavor. Also, proofreading, finding time to make posters or papers and presentations, that can be very tedious or difficult because you want to ensure that you're representing the most important points and that you're representing your findings accurately and also in a way that other listeners or viewers would be able to understand and relate to. And so that does take a significant amount of effort. Another common theme that we see is the need to learn either a new programming language or a statistical tool, getting familiar with the process of research and some of the software or programs that are required. And this can be very time intensive and challenging when you're first starting out. So we see a lot having to do with becoming familiar with just the overall process of research and ensuring that the findings are well represented. But I think, as all of you can attest to, being able to do that and accomplish that ends up being very rewarding. And so even though there are some challenges or pitfalls to research, working through that process can be very rewarding and empowering.
There's also the difficulty when your things personal life just get in the way. It's terrible timing, and our thoughts go out to the individuals that posted that personal life got really rough, and that definitely does step in the way. And yeah, sorry.
Well, I think that once again, we understand the frustrations, the time limitations, all the constraints on the things that we're trying to do, and this becomes a challenge for faculty, for anybody that's doing scholarly work. I like this particular quote because it gives me comfort when things don't work. There's no such thing as a failed experiment, only experiments with unexpected outcomes. Maybe you do or do not know who R. Buckminster Fuller is. He is the person that invented the geodesic dome. So maybe you do or do not know what the geodesic dome is. But I thought that this was a good way of summarizing some of the experiences that I've had that have been quite miserable. I will also say that from my perspective, as one who believes strongly in science and scholarship, one of the worst experiences that I have had is not actually an experience with research per se, but it was the realization that science is subject to politicalization. Is that the word I want? In other words, you see that going on right now, by the way, in the COVID environment. But when I found that some of my work was being rejected on clearly political grounds, it was really a disheartening sense, because we believe that we are providing new knowledge that is fairly objective, that is a voice and so on. And my realizing that this wasn't always the case was a little disappointing. I don't know if such things happen in math. Can you argue politics in math? Maybe you can, maybe you can't. But let's go on to the next question. Oh, by the way, this is one of my favorites, because I don't know if you had to do statistics as part of your project. I used to have to do statistics, and I really did not love it. But I will say that now I actually love statistics. So one thing that research has taught me is to love statistics in ways that I thought I could never love statistics. And it took me a long time to get there, but that's just a commentary and aside. Let's go to the second to last question. So this really ties in, if you were at Dr. Pudwell's presentation this morning, she left you with several questions, thought questions. One was about how the research affected you more than simply in that it provided new content or information. That is, what was the effect on you personally? So this last question, how has this experience affected you personally? How has it changed you? And you can respond, I now do this. This could be positive, it could be negative. I now will never collect another piece of data in my life, okay? I hope that's not the case, but, or maybe it's simply a neutral comment. It doesn't have to be positive, that's my point, okay? So if you could reflect on this for a minute and then give us some ideas as to how you personally have been changed by this particular experience.
I'll tell you what, my research has been in human sexuality and sexual functioning. So I now have a very religious grandmother who that my studies are in something different because I'm a little nervous to bring that up at Thanksgiving with her. But
yeah. So far, we have a response from Zach, who writes, I now have a new set of skills and abilities which has helped me secure employment in my field. So that's wonderful to know that what you've learned through the research project has really enabled you to pursue a career path of interest to you. Kaylee writes, I now understand the importance and impact that research has on the individual and society as a whole. So getting a new perspective by undertaking a research project. Okay, I guess I'll do a little bit with my experience while we're waiting for some comments. Doing research has really enabled me to think about problems critically and to try to come up with practical solutions. I feel that research really gets you into that problem-solving mind and also helps you to entertain that natural curiosity that you have about life or about particular challenges. I see a couple more comments coming in. Samarth from Psychology writes, I learned a lot more about the culture where my parents come from. So again, having that interdisciplinary approach and also having greater cultural sensitivity by exploring particular research issues. Noelle from English and Humanities writes, I think about a medieval Italian text almost every day since I wrote the paper 2 years ago. So it really has given Noelle a powerful reflection on this particular text. It helps to think deeply about what you've read and learned and the information that you've acquired. So research can really have that life-changing impact, and the skills and the interest that you gain from doing research can persist far beyond the individual project.
Three major groupings have been about skills, the things that you've learned and you take away from it, affects personally. Another one has been understanding more about that field, the importance of it, the impact of it, the background of it. And then another major one has been just thinking all the time. Definitely comes from those late nights and staying up, doing research over and over again because statistics doesn't work. So yeah, that's the main thing that we've gotten.
think that in my own experience, I'm very sympathetic to the comment about the fact that when you do research, you're thinking about it all the time. It doesn't leave you. You're thinking about it at times of the day when you shouldn't be thinking about it. And you're thinking about the next things that you're going to be doing, or how you can improve what you're currently doing, or how this idea is impacting your thinking. So research, in a sense, becomes a way of life. And those of us that I think are really engaged significantly in research understand that if we were to give up research, we would feel the loss of a part of our identity. And I know that there are some of you that will probably get to that point where your identity will be not only that of a teacher or a scholar or somebody doing whatever, but also that of a person who is inquiring into ideas. As Albert Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge. I don't exactly know what that means, but it sounded really good, and I really like it. So, in other words, knowledge is important, but how you imagine yourself getting there, or how you can imagine things, is as important to getting that knowledge. This takes us to the last point, and this is a very practical one. And this, by the way, you're now going to respond to everyone, because we are not going to summarize. We're simply going to take an opportunity to look at what people say. So what one take-home message would you like people to remember about your project? So do respond to everyone. Try to put it in one sentence. I know that some of you may have a difficult time doing that, but this is the challenge that you will have when you actually get to the point of publishing a paper. That is, you have to have something that you can say that has meaning to a group of people that isn't too complex, even though it may be a very complex idea. You have to find simple ways of saying it. So please contribute your thought on this. Boil what you've done down to one phrase. So now you should all be seeing this. Is that the case? Are they all seeing it? Okay. Be wary about security. Great ideas, okay? Knowledge is hard-earned and worth sharing. I like that, Stan. See, we're getting some attrition here, which is okay. Those of you that make it to the end get a special reward. We're all going to El Salto to have a margarita. Oh, you're not in town, are you? I'm sorry, you'll have to take a rain check on that then. Relationships change when translated into the digital. Very interesting. Do something outside of the box that you're not used to doing. Very good. Nanotechnology is everywhere, and the more we know, the more useful it can be. So these are the take-home messages. This is the knowledge that is being generated. People won't remember your experiment, your study, your project. They will remember what you say here. We'll learn a very important topic, which controls. Oh. Okay. All right. You will learn a very important topic, which controls the ICT world today. Please remember our engaging conversations and your ongoing questions. Yes. There's so much we can learn from different places and communities that we may not be familiar with. Video gaming industry is difficult to boil down to one equation. I read your abstract, Thomas. I remember this, yes. I think that was the study about what makes some video gaming successful and others not. Okay, I think we're probably so. The reason why I asked you to do this last piece is because if you continue to do research, you'll learn that talking about your research, which is often something that you'll need to learn to do, it requires a different skill set than simply doing the research. But talking about your research is like telling a story. And if you can conceptualize what you have done as a story, I'm okay, right? Okay. As a story, that there's a beginning and there's an end point, and we hope that the end point is an end point that's worth mentioning. That there's a beginning, there's a process, there's a goal, and there's actually getting to the goal. I always think of my research as a story that I'm going to tell to somebody. Before I even do the project, I think, what story will I have to tell? Because if I don't have a good story that people want to listen to, I know that I will not be able to share the story with other people. So I think the quote here is one that is a good one, and that is that often the first draft of the paper that we write or the poster presentation that we put together is really our just telling ourselves the story. In other words, you're making certain that you know the pieces of the story, but at some point you really need to think about who is it that is going to listen to your story, and you need to ultimately be telling that story to a group of people who want to listen to it, who find value in it. So I just leave you with that thought, that is, as you think about research, you always have to be thinking about who you're talking to and what you have to say to that particular audience. The comments from this entire session, I think, Brett, if this is the case, we can post to everybody. Is that correct? Okay, so even those that came only to us, because there were some that we couldn't cover, we want to post to everybody so that you have a chance to scroll through them. In conclusion, I would really like to thank you for being a part of this discussion, for contributing. I know that some of you didn't, but that's okay. We need only a critical mass, and I think we got a lot of good ideas from those people that did take the time to contribute. So with that, I want to congratulate everybody again. Thank you. And I think probably at this point, we're going to sign off. So thanks again. Celebrate. I bet you're relieved that it's over, but you can look forward to the next time. Thanks.